Uh, Lazaro in Texas. I'm sorry you're here with us in the heat, but
Yeah.
now you're on the line with Jimmy and Matt.
Yes.
Hello.
Is it Lazaro or Lazaro?
Yeah, it's fine. Lazaro or Lazaro is fine.
Lazaro. I like that.
It's kind of like Lazarus from the Bible, but it's Lazaro in Spanish.
It's interesting. How hot is it where you are?
It's like 106.
Oof.
I'm down here on the border, man. I'm here by the border with Mexico.
You got it even worse than us. All right, you've called to answer
By McAllen?
No, I'm up here by Eagle Pass.
Okay.
You called to tell us why you believe in God. We are ready to hear it.
Yeah, I'm actually a Baptist, like Matt was. So yeah, well, I mean, I've heard. I mean, I've listened to you guys for a while, and you guys always ask that question. It's pretty difficult to. Most of the people that you ask that, it's like they have a hard time once you ask people, why do you believe in God? But I'm gonna give you my best reason or reasons, and number one, it's because I'm human first, and animals don't believe in God. So I know it sounds kind of stupid, but yes, I'm human, so I can use reasoning. Number two.
Well, let's Lazaro. Before you go, let's try and stick to exclusive reasoning that you believe in God,
Okay,
because
sure.
so you just gave the example of because I'm human, but I'm human. I don't believe in God, so
Sure.
that's not an exclusive reason. It doesn't exclusively get you to God. So,
Sure.
But also,
I mean,
we are animals, and non-human animals do use reasoning.
yeah,
So,
that's true.
I mean, right off the bat, you've been wrong at everything that came out of your mouth.
So
okay.
let's try a different one. Exclusive reasoning that only.
Okay. Sure. I mean, what type of reasoning do, like, say, a dog uses? What?
You can literally train dogs because they reason.
Yeah, you train dogs, but
Right, and based on reasoning.
how do we get?
So I receive a treat if I do this, or I get validation in some way, or in some training methods, punishment in some way, dependent on how I do it. Dogs literally, they don't use language like we use, but they do reason. You can even teach dogs complex puzzles to do that result in them getting treats and solving puzzles and stuff. So
a dog, you're telling me that a dog, for example, can say, you know what, man?
a dog can't say anything.
No, I know, but it's reasoning, right? I mean, we reason, we think, we talk to ourselves, we think to ourselves, say, like, you know what?
Right, that's not what reasoning is.
Okay, well,
that's not exclusively what reasoning is.
You don't think you don't think that when a dog has been bad and you scold it, that the dog can't figure out it was bad?
Yeah, I guess it does understand some kind of like a pain, you know, like. But
no, not pain. Not pain. Oh, I give up. This is so frustrating that we're literally sitting here saying, okay, so first of all,
I'm just trying to tell you,
no. Stop talking for a second.
Okay.
When we'll start over.
Okay, go ahead. Sure.
We're going to start over.
Okay.
We need you to tell us why you believe in God. The first thing you said was because you're human. Well, I'm human and I don't believe in. Oh my God, can you stop talking while I do this?
Okay.
I'm human and I don't believe in a God. I used to, but now I don't. So being human, as Jimmy pointed out, is not a criteria, and it is not a path to evidence, and it has no relevance to whether or not one should believe in a God when we talk about why. Second is, you say animals can't reason, but they can. You just don't seem to know that. Animals have empathy. Animals have a sense of fairness, and many animals, dogs, et cetera, are able to be trained. And some animals are even more robust in their ability to be trained and comprehend things and solve problems. Birds can solve problems and use tools. Dolphins can do all this. So let's set aside all of this stuff. Being a human isn't enough. Being an animal isn't relevant. So what reason? Use the reasoning that you're so proud of that you want to take it away from other animals. What reasoning can you provide that shows why you believe in a God and anybody else should as well?
Okay, my reason is I can reason there's because of creation and then because of my mortality. Creation, I can see it all around me. I know what you guys say. Creation is not like when you find a watch in the beach and stuff like that. I know, but for example, like a doctor can study the body, right? And they know how to work on a body. A mechanic knows how to work on a car, but the doctor didn't make a body. Somebody created the body.
No, no,
no, I agree.
no,
Someone created the body.
Yeah.
It was the person's
Right.
parents through having
no,
sex.
that's not.
No. Well, not the person's parents. I mean, at some point there was an origin, right? And evolution doesn't explain the origin; it explains how the life evolved.
However, it does
not the
explain
origin.
the body you just said, because you're right. Evolution doesn't explain abiogenesis, but we do know some things about the most primitive forms of life and how non-complex they were, and then how complex they became. And we know the mechanism which drove that. We know about the pressure of natural selection. We know about a genetic change, and we know what evolution fundamentally is and why Homo sapiens exist even in the state they are in, and can even have very good theories about what specific pressures led to the, for example, the evolutionary advantage of our brains evolving over something like gorillas, who are these massive monsters that can outperform physically almost any other mammal, and yet are vegans or vegetarians. So it actually, the body, which you just said, is explained by entirely natural means, and in fact, by entirely natural modifications, that the concept of adding a god to being a part of the design is contradictory to proven evolutionary theory. The human body, why we have feet, why we have opposable thumbs. I have opposable thumbs, that's for sure. Opposable thumbs, why we have eyes, why the eyes work the way they do, why they are very good in open air, but not at higher elevations or underwater. Why we keep our mouths wet all of the time. Why we now can't eat raw foods very well, especially raw land animals versus sea animal. All of this is by very natural explanation, and we can see the preliminary phases. We can see that nothing but nature drove that.
If you'll forgive me, we don't need, and all that's correct. I don't think Lazaro needs a lesson on evolution. I think Lazaro needs a lesson on how to make an argument. So let's set aside creation.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, hang on.
Okay.
The first lesson you need is in learning when to fucking stop talking. I'm trying to help you out so that you get to make the best case you can, and I couldn't even finish my thought.
Okay, it's because Jimmy was talking like for a minute, and I thought I was going to respond to him, but go ahead.
You're not. Instead of talking about creation, because you think the universe is created and we don't, and you don't yet know how to demonstrate that, you said that you also know because of mortality. So I would like for you to construct an argument that begins with you and I agree that you and I are both mortal. How does that demonstrate that there is, how does our mortality demonstrate that there is a God? Do that argument. Okay.
No, I can't.
Oh, no, stop. Stop.
Okay.
Earlier, when I asked you to use reasoning to demonstrate that a God exists, did you say that you know it because of creation and because of mortality?
That's my personal.
Did you say that you know it because of mortality?
Okay. Well, let me explain real quick.
Did you fucking say
Yes.
that you know it because of mortality?
Yes.
Okay. When you say that, that is you saying the reason I know there's a God is because of mortality. And if you understood reasoning, you would be saying, I can construct a reasoned argument beginning with mortality exists or mortality is real and concluding with God exists. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Then do it. Then do it.
Okay. You say you were a Baptist in the early part of your life, right?
What does that have to do with mortality?
Okay. What was your reason for being a Baptist?
Sir, I have already apologized to... Sir, stop talking and listen to me.
Okay.
Are you able to construct a reasoned argument that begins with mortality exists and concludes with God exists?
Mortality exists because it's impossible for human life or any life to exist on Earth forever. It's just impossible. We all have to die.
So the answer to my question is no. You are not capable of constructing a reasoned argument that begins with mortality and ends with God. And since you're not capable of doing that, when I asked you to present your reasons for believing in God, you should not have listed mortality.
Well, in a personal way, it's just mortality to me means that
No,
since I'm gonna
sir.
die.
No, sir.
Okay.
No, sir. If you're going to come in here and suggest that you believe in God because you are a creature of reason, you're going to use reason or we're not going to listen. You do not get to pretend that you are above other animals in reasoning when you cannot construct a single reasonable argument for your belief. Are you capable of presenting one reasoned argument that begins with premises and results in the conclusion that therefore God exists? Is that something you can do?
Yes.
Do it.
I just told you. Okay, I'll do it.
No, sir. No, sir, you did not.
Go ahead.
No, sir,
Okay,
you
look,
did not present anything at all that approached a reasonable argument.
Okay.
You began with
All right.
mortality and you said it's impossible for humans to live forever on Earth. That is not a reasoned argument. You don't have a major and minor premise. You don't have a connecting term. You did not begin with mortality and conclude a God exists. You didn't even conclude with God exists. You just vomited forth some nonsense about mortality.
Nonsense.
Yes.
Okay. My reasoning.
You don't have reasoning.
Well, it's like you use reason to decide to leave the Baptist church, right? That was you used some kind of reasoning, or did you have a premise?
No, Lazaro, wait.
Come on.
Yes.
You are trying to change
I used reasoning to conclude that I did not have good reasons to remain a Baptist.
But what was your premise and your arguments and all that stuff? Come on.
No, sir. No, sir.
This is about your good reasons.
No, sir.
Not
I'm going to answer. I didn't begin with a premise and conclude that Baptist was false. I evaluated the arguments that I used for being a Baptist and found they were flawed. And when they are flawed, you cannot come to conclude that the conclusion is true. So when I removed all of the flawed arguments, nothing remained, which is exactly what you apparently have right now, a big nothing.
Lazaro, your reason for why God exists or baptism is true is not why did Matt not decide that God exists? Why did Matt not decide baptism is true? So you need to share just a reason why anybody besides yourself, because that's what you seem to be getting stuck on. It's personal. What is a good reason for people exterior to just you to believe in God?
Because science has not explained life. They only explained how life evolves, but they don't know where it came from. So to me, that's a good reason.
How do you know where it came from? If science hasn't explained where it came from, how do you know?
I really don't. But
so when we asked you, you just said the reason to believe is because science hasn't explained where life came from yet. How does that, if you don't know, then how is that a reason for belief?
I don't know. I guess it just means that at some point in our lives, we just, maybe we use that emotionalism, and we say there must be a higher power, and some of us go that way. And other people like you decide it's not good enough for me, so you go the other way.
So
it's not good enough for anybody, Lazaro. That's why I'm advocating for a presentation based on reason. It's not, see, you can look at the world and say, well, I just can't think of anything else other than God. But that's a give up move. That is intellectually vapid. You're admitting that you're believing something without a good reason. So here's the only question that I have left for you at all.
Okay.
Well, there may be a follow-up question depending on your answer. Do you care whether or not your beliefs are correct?
Yes, I do.
Then why don't you take the steps to demonstrate that what you believe about a God is correct?
Well, it's not easy, and I'll tell you why. Because if I give you my reasons, the next thing you're gonna tell me, you're gonna bring up slavery in the Bible.
Oh my fucking God.
I love fortune
You know,
tellers.
I already apologized to one person today for calling them a coward. Lazaro, you are a coward.
Coward.
Yes, you are.
No,
Yes, you are, sir.
No, no.
Because,
Okay.
no, sir, you are a coward.
Oh, I'm a coward.
Because I've given you every opportunity, and I asked a simple question about whether or not you care about the truth. And you decided that instead of showing how you could care about the truth, you would once again turn it around and make it about me and what I would say. This isn't just you don't understand reason. You are unwilling to use reason because you do not care if your beliefs are true. The evidence for this is that instead of presenting the good reason that you have, or even the bad reason you had, you just said, well, if I do that, you'll bring up slavery in the Bible. All right. I promise you, I will not bring up slavery in the Bible. Why won't you provide a good reason to show that what you believe is true? Tell me the good reason.
Because the Bible tells me that I need to, first of all, do things that are opposed to the world, like love my enemies. The world does not tell me to love my enemies. It tells me to be vengeful, to avenge my enemies. And
Lazaro.
all around me. But,
Lazaro?
yeah.
What difference does it make what the Bible says when we're talking about whether or not it's true that there's a God?
True that there's a God. Well, I have another. I mean, I don't think anybody has any. Either we have books. We either have the Quran.
Okay.
The Mormons. And
Lazaro.
the Bible. What else?
Lazaro.
We don't have anything.
Lazaro.
Else. That's why you.
Lazaro.
Yeah.
Lazaro. What difference does it make what the Bible says if the question is, how do we know that God is real?
Well, the Bible doesn't have anything to do with that, I guess.
Correct. So when I asked you if you cared about whether your beliefs are true, and then you said yes, and then I asked you how you could know that they're true, and you deflected by falsely claiming that I was going to talk about the Bible and slavery, you then still went to, because the Bible says. Is it possible that the Bible's wrong?
Possible that the Bible is wrong.
God, this is the easiest question in the world.
Written by men, inspired by God. It's hard for a Christian to answer that and say, yeah, the Bible's wrong.
Lazaro.
It's hard for a Christian to be honest.
Lazaro, is it possible that it wasn't inspired by God?
It could be possible, yes.
How do you tell whether or not it's actually inspired by God?
How do I tell if it's inspired by God? If it tells me to do something that's contrary to what would benefit humanity.
If the book tells you to do something that's contrary to what would benefit humanity, does that mean it's from God or not from God?
I would say if it tells me to do something that's contrary to benefit humanity, I would say then God would contradict himself as being a good God.
Okay, so your criteria is that as long as a book doesn't tell you to do something that would hurt humanity, then that is a book that is inspired by God, right?
Yes.
Okay, I have here the Ashley Book of Knots. This book, to my knowledge, doesn't include anything that would instruct you to harm humanity. Does that mean that this book was inspired by God?
No.
No. So clearly your criteria for whether or not a book is inspired by God is refuted by your own admission. So I'll ask again, how do we tell if a book is inspired by God, because the answer you gave me wasn't how to tell if it is inspired by God. It was how to tell if it's not inspired by God. I want to know, how do you tell if the book is inspired by God? That's the question.
Man, that's not an easy question here.
And yet it's the most important one, wouldn't it? Because you're sitting here looking at a book saying, this is inspired by God and I'm going to follow it, and I'm going to use it as the foundation to give me the answers that science hasn't given me, and it's going to be what I use to justify everything about my religious belief. And yet, by your own admission, you don't have a way, or at least you haven't been able to give a way yet, of telling that it's actually inspired by God. Isn't that important?
No, we don't.
Okay.
Yes,
So
it is important.
so if you care about whether or not your beliefs are true, and you can't tell whether or not the Bible is inspired by God, then we don't get to use the Bible, right?
Right.
So now you have beliefs about a God. You don't get to use the Bible because you have no way of telling whether or not it's actually inspired by God. So what other method would you use to tell if your belief in God is true?
Man, I guess and that's like, I said, a dumb answer, but it's like, you just look at, we use the history of mankind, how people have always believed in some deity, whether they're
But they haven't.
in the wrong deity, the right deity, but that's how we've grown up like that. You know, we've always been taught that there's a God.
So Lazaro, so first of all, thank you for not being cowardly and actually answering the questions honestly as we put them up. But first of all, throughout the history of humanity, people haven't always believed in God. There are civilizations that don't. But even if every civilization ever had believed in some God, that wouldn't tell us at all whether or not those gods were real, right?
No, because we dismiss gods like the all the Greek gods, Thor, and
Yeah.
we've dismissed those. So that's true. What you're saying.
No, well, you've dismissed those. There are active believers of those today.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't really care for those individuals, but
Oh, really? I didn't know that. I thought
Yes.
that was
There
part of
are
the Avengers
there are
they were talking
adults who believe in Santa. Every belief that has been posited, Rule 34 of belief, somebody holds it.
so here's the thing. I just want to see if we're on the same page. I'm not saying I'm not. I appreciate you calling in and explaining why you believe and being honest to answer these after we push back. So we're at a spot where Lazaro believes in God and I don't, and we both claim that we care whether or not our beliefs are true. When I care if my beliefs are true, I can't believe something unless there's a good reason. And the reason I'm no longer a Southern Baptist is because all of the things that I thought were good reasons, when I evaluated them, just as you've been doing over the last 3 or 4 minutes, I found that they weren't good reasons. I believed, hey, the Bible's inspired by God. And then I realized I can't prove that. I have no way of telling whether it's inspired by God or not. I've just been told that. And I went with that assumption. And so then I don't get to claim that the Bible is true and inspired by God because I can't demonstrate it. And when I look at, there must be some explanation for the origins of the universe. Yes, there must be some explanation for the origin of the universe, but I don't know that it's a person or a God or anything about it. And the same thing's true for mortality and morality and all of these things. And so the question becomes, if you made a list of all the reasons you believe in God, and then you removed each one of them that was logically flawed, or that you couldn't tell the difference between it being true or not true, what's left?
What's left is so I think the reason a lot of people believe in God is one, I think it's fear of death, and then number two is thinking that you are going to be standing before a God that's going to judge you.
Yep. So I think you're right. However, neither of those, I'm not going to keep pestering you with questions. I would say that neither of those is a good reason to believe that a God exists. Fear of death doesn't tell you whether or not there's a God. It's
No, it
just,
doesn't.
I hope that it's not over when it's over. And maybe it is, maybe it's not. But this fear about standing before a God, here's something to think about. What if after you die, it's not over, and you find yourself standing in front of a God that you're not familiar with at all? And that God says, "Hi, I understand that you were a Christian. Sorry, that is not true. I am the one true God. Please explain why you didn't believe in me." What would you say?
uh, I don't know. Actually, honestly, I don't know what I would say. I guess I would freak out, man. Like, I guess I believed the wrong thing this whole time. I don't know.
Yeah.
That would be
And
shocking.
and I don't have to push further than that, because I don't know what I know what I'd say now. But it's one of those things about Pascal's wager is this concept of, oh, if I believe, I've lost nothing, but if you're an atheist, you've lost everything, and it turns out you're wrong, you lost everything. Pascal's wager is just terrible, because you got to figure out which heaven are you trying to get into and which hell are you trying to avoid. And if you don't have a way of telling which religion is correct, then you could wind up believing the wrong religion. But let's imagine that you and I both die, and there is some God, and you and I are standing side by side, and that God looks at you and says, "Hey, you believed in Christianity. Sorry, you were wrong. Why didn't you believe in me?" And you don't know what you'd say. But that God has to look at me and say, why didn't you believe in me? And I have the same answer, whether it's the God of Christianity or Judaism or Islam or Scientology or Jainism or Jains, etc. And that is because there wasn't sufficient evidence to reach that conclusion. And if I'm wrong, show me the evidence that I missed. And a God that is just, and a God that is reasonable, and a God that knows my mind will have no choice but to say, I see how you did this, and I see that you were honestly seeking and honestly open to evidence, and either you missed it through no fault of your own, because I created a limited being that isn't likely to know and understand everything, or I didn't give enough evidence. No God that is good and just could possibly punish me for not believing something when I sincerely haven't had enough evidence.
Interesting. That's the different way of seeing things, and explaining to people as we're told to evangelize. It's a very different way of explaining. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Last
And
thing,
here's
yeah, go ahead.
here's the last little thing on that. What if you get up there and there's a God and he says, "Hey, Lazaro, you were so confident in your Christian theism that you intentionally went out to convert other people, and you led all those people astray. Should I punish them for believing you? Should I punish you for misleading them? Should I punish no one? Well, what should actually happen here?" I'm not expecting you to answer that, but it's kind of just a food for thought type of question there.
Yeah.
But there's a reason that I'm no longer a Christian and no longer Southern Baptist, and it isn't because I constructed an argument that proved them wrong. It's because I deconstructed all of the arguments that attempted to show that they were right. And I can't believe something if I don't have a good reason. And I certainly couldn't advocate for a religion without a good reason.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, believe me, I'm not an atheist. I mean, I'm a Christian, but
Yep.
But I've listened to you guys a lot, and and I understand where you're coming from in a lot of ways. But one of the things that I hear a lot, I don't know if it's true or not, but I mean, you hang out with more atheists. I'm pretty sure you have more atheist friends than non-atheist maybe. But one of the things that that I hear about atheists is that they're always angry, and And I'm not saying that you're angry all the time, but I know you get you get frustrated on your phone, and I see
Yep.
Jimmy sometimes he gets pissed off at people. But
Yep.
is that something that you notice from atheist people? Because
Literally, all you
Christians
just
will say,
said to
"No,
me is, Lazaro, all you just said is the thing I know about atheists is they're pretty human.
Yeah.
As if, do you really want to pretend that this is an exclusive quality of atheists? You've never met anger amongst Christians. You've never met anger
no, of
amongst the
course.
religious. And by the way,
Yes, of course.
Lazaro, if tomorrow you realized everything you were raised with wasn't true, and everything that you gave financial contributions to wasn't true, and that you even suspected that many of the people who convinced you knew at the very least that their reasons weren't good, and you recognize that they were manipulating you, that you were being lied to and controlled, that your destiny was taken away from being your own choice, that your life was an issued identity instead of an identity you could figure out for yourself. Let's say that happened to you, Lazaro. Would it be okay if you were angry about that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And if you add to that the fact that you wake up, and granted, I'm not angry all day, every day. I'm generally in a good mood almost all day, almost every day.
Your show,
But
man.
yeah, because it's frustrating to have these conversations. But if you woke up every single day and the overwhelming majority of the world believed in things that they couldn't demonstrate, and those people voted on behalf of those things to marginalize other groups and to mistreat and deny rights to people that you loved and cared about, and then drove a wedge between you and your family members to where you couldn't sit down and have a meal or a discussion without them trying to love abuse and love bomb you, or to talk about how you don't believe what they believe, and so that must mean you're a bad person. It's worth it. If all of that happens and you're not angry from time to time, I don't know what's wrong with you. And I don't mean you, I just mean the person that.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that I know Jimmy was a Mormon. Us Christians or Baptists, we say they're false doctrine. They have false doctrine.
Yeah. By the way, Mormons say the same thing about you.
Yeah, I know. I have a couple of friends that are Mormons, and my aunt, she's a Jehovah's Witness, so we say she's got bad theology, and they're all messed up, and they think we're messed up. So that's one of the things I don't understand. Why is it? Our group is right, your group is wrong, his group is wrong. I mean, so it's a mess, and that's one of the things about religion that does frustrate me. And I'm not trying to be an atheist or anything, but it's one of the things that does frustrate me about belief in God. How so many splintered groups and everybody thinks everybody else is wrong and everybody else is going to hell. And so I'm saying, why does God allow that kind of stuff? That's one thing I don't understand. Why does God allow that to happen?
Lazaro, have you ever considered that right now you have a problem because everybody thinks they're right and they can't all be right? But have you ever considered the idea that they could all be wrong?
They could all be wrong, yeah, but I would have to include myself in that too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, of course. You should include yourself. After today, didn't you? You've admitted that you don't have good reason. Earlier, when we were talking about you kind of went with the gaps in science thing. You said the phrase when you're met basically with this that we don't have an explanation for it. You said that some people go one way and some go the other, and you went the God way and we've gone the not God way. You can say that about anything. If I find a sandwich that's unexplained on my oven, and I can't find it, you would think I was crazy if I said the sandwich fairy put it there. But if you can't find an explanation and find a person who claims credit for it, then I can just arbitrarily say, well, you went one way and I went the other. That's not a good reason. So at the end of this call, you have to recognize you don't have a good reason to believe you're right in any way that a person at any of those other religions. If you'd like, you can try it out. I can pretend to be a Mormon. You go ahead and I remember very much what it's like. I'm sure, well, you and Matt, you said Matt was the same type of Baptist as you, but what argument could you give that proves that your God is correct and Mormonism's isn't? That I couldn't just flip and do the exact same argument back to you with minimal modification?
Well, And the only thing I know about Mormons is that they say that Jesus and God Jesus and the devil are brothers.
Sure.
And some other weird doctrines they have, so that's still, I don't know too much about them, except the doctrinal weirdness.
Right, but it's doctrinally weird because you didn't grow up with it, Lazaro. I grew up with the idea that God and Jesus are two separate people, that Jesus is the literal Son of God. And to me, it's still weird when I meet people who don't believe that, even though most people don't believe that. Like, do you believe that Jesus is the human form of God, that they are basically one and the same person?
Yes, Trinity, God, Father, Son.
You're kind of breaking out right now. I'm not sure what's going on with your
there's some kind of audio issue.
connection. But you're talking about that being doctrinally weird, and I grew up with the justification that that's untrue, entirely seeped in the Bible, by the way. It doesn't matter that you can do it without the Book of Mormon. The idea that they are two complete. So it's doctrinally weird, but it doesn't show that it's untrue, because weird is subjective. That's your state of mind. Lazaro, why don't you hang up and call right back, and we'll bring you back in to finish up the call, just because I think it's your connection there, bud. Cool, thanks. I just want to make sure that we can finish up and let him get his final things. Because that exclusivity argument, I feel like, is the important thing that not only is he missing, but was the same thing that we were having trouble getting Timothy to even grasp conceptually. Let's see if he's, I don't know how long it takes to make the connection back. Ba-ba-bum. Is this possibly him? I didn't put this last thing. Is this Lazaro?
Yeah, that's me.
Okay, cool.
Is it better?
Yeah. I hear you much better. So the point was about exclusivity. What argument can you make that disqualifies Mormons, but qualifies Baptism or whatever God belief as correct? Because if I was a Mormon, I would say that you think, even though Jesus is often listed as the Son of God, and there are all of these things, like when he's in the Garden of Gethsemane, that point to the idea of them being the same, is actually metaphor, that they're actually, and that in reality, the only reason you believe in the Trinitarian God is because a bunch of men got together and did the Nicene Creed together. And that creed is the most evil thing because that was an attempt to define God, which is heresy. That's what I would do as a Mormon. So we can't just say subjectively, I find it weird. That doesn't make it. So what exclusivity argument can you point to say, my God is true, but another God isn't, and this only works for this and is evidently true?
My God is true, and the Mormon God.
Or any other God you want to pick. The Muslim God.
Yeah. I really don't have any explanation, really. It's just based on tradition and Western, how we've been taught in where we live, I live in the United States, it's a Western country, and we've been taught Christianity. Mormonism is kind of like a new religion type of thing.
Newish, sure.
Because it's a false doctrine because of their weird doctrines that, I understand what you're saying, that we could
Baptism is new relatively.
Baptist?
Yeah. Especially American, maybe it's not called baptism, I don't know, but maybe American Baptists, or American Baptists even more so, because this is all deviation of doctrine. Calling it weird is just a matter of subjective opinion. That's strange. But the reason why Baptists exist and aren't just Catholics is because they differ from Catholicism in doctrine. And a Catholic could call the way you two differ weird. So weird isn't a matter of qualification at all, right?
No, it's based on doctrine. We don't, the Christians, I'm pretty sure Matt knows all this stuff. We don't have a papal system, or we don't have a priest where
the Baptists don't. Obviously, Catholics are Christians. Mormons believe they're Christians also. Baptists specifically don't.
But if we go by the Bible, which I know it's not a proof of anything, but if we go by the Bible, in the Bible, in the New Testament, that's all done away with, and the Catholics still continue to do that. So we say that doctrinally they're wrong. We don't know. The the Bible says that we're all priests now. We're a royal priesthood. We don't need.
The Bible
need a
also
priest.
says that the true church of the Lord will bear its name. Why doesn't the Baptist church bear the name Jesus Christ on it? I'm being a Mormon again. Oof.
Yeah.
That's one of our stupid arguments, Mormonism, why we're true and you're not. Again, pretending to be a Mormon. It also says in the Bible that the true church will have prophets, pastors, teachers, bishops, all, but I think the word bishops is it. Why are there no modern day prophets? If there is no modern day prophet, then there's no modern day prophecy according to, I don't remember what chapter, it's in the New Testament. I just remember the stupid arguments. Because Mormonism tries hard to make sure you disqualify every other Christian religion according just to the Bible as true.
Well, I don't know how we define prophets. Prophets are could be
Called of God.
preachers,
Called of God, like Adam, Noah, Jesus himself, the apostles which followed. Prophets and apostles were supposed to all be, if God's revealing his word, he will always do it through prophets and apostles.
Okay.
This is only an exercise. I'm just showing you everything you think you can do can be done back to you. This is the point about exclusivity arguments. Can you isolate an exclusive reason why, if any religion is true, if any Christian religion or religion in general, why it would be your religion versus another? And I've just shown you so far the style of arguments that you use. Anybody from any of these religions can use. So it has to be something exterior to, well, when the Bible says, Mormons believe in the Bible, Catholics believe in the Bible. You saying the Bible says isn't going to, unless you can point to where it says Catholicism is untrue in the Bible, you can't point to the Bible as having some exclusive revelation for your religion. And I think Matt already kind of ran through that with you.
Yeah. I'm
No,
gonna be honest. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I know most people are not honest because you feel like you're betraying yourself when you say something that's really true.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, I think that a lot of, unless you've been kind of like enlightened a little bit and you kind of examine yourself and your beliefs, most people ignore all these things that you're saying because we feel, I feel, or Christians feel, or people feel that we would be betraying ourselves. Like, man, I've invested all my life in this, and you're telling me that it's not true?
Yeah.
Or you're telling me that I have to...
Lazaro,
You know what? I'm not with
yeah, you're referring to the sunk cost fallacy. It's the reason why my dad won't listen to me either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But one question for you guys. You guys are not afraid of death or the afterlife, or if there is or there isn't, you guys don't care about any of that stuff?
I'm not afraid of being dead. I don't want to die soon. I'd like to have a longer life than humans get, but I'd like it to be a healthy life. I'm not fond of the concept of dying because whether you believe in an afterlife or not, dying is pretty objectively nasty business. Far fewer people get to just be living an okay life and then just drift off in their sleep. Dying is usually slow and gross. So I'm not fond of that. I definitely have anxieties regarding basically YOLO. Not YOLO, FOMO. There's a lot about the future that I am sad that I am basically destined to miss. Some of the very stupid. I'm sad that I'm not going to see whatever the 100th generation of virtual reality is going to be. By the way, Lazaro, I don't know if we're on speakerphone, but it's like electricity is trying to repeat some of my stuff back to me when I'm talking. It just stopped though, so it seems to be better. But death, I don't think death is not sad. When people die that I love, I miss them. And I think when I die, as Keanu Reeves in his famous thing said, what do you think happens when you die? I think people will miss me. I hope people will miss me. But as far as you said earlier that you care whether what you believe is true. And so I want to address the fact that you've just given a new point and the point prior. The point prior was you've been raised with this all your life and it's counter to identity, and that's scary. Stopping that from letting you see if it's true is contrary to what you said earlier about caring about whether it is true. If you care about whether it is true, you will go where the facts take you, even if it's unpleasant. And then now the new one is, are you're asking if we're afraid of death or don't care about death. Basically, I assume, implicit in there is the point that fear of death motivates you or others to believe. But again, that's not a good reason for belief. So to address the fear of death, or to take on the fear of death as a reason why you should believe in God, is to say, I want to believe in it because I will feel better about something that is an inevitability. And by the time I realize I'm wrong, if I'm wrong, I just won't even notice because I'll be dead. That's still contrary to what you said earlier about caring whether it's true.
Yeah. No, it's true. And I mean, honestly, I mean, when I listen to you guys, and one time Matt, or several times when he talks about slavery, and believe me, I've tried to research that, but I always and I talked to several people, and they don't have really an explanation as to why the Bible condones that type of slavery, and that's one of the things that really stumps me.
Lazaro,
that's one of the things, like, it's hard for me to
Lazaro,
see that. It's like it's causing problems for me. Believe me.
Lazaro, are you aware that slavery was widespread at that time?
Yeah.
Could that be the answer? Because you said it confuses you. So have you just considered it was a slave-built society? It was economically advantageous. Those people were bigoted, discriminatory, racist assholes in some cases. In some cases, it was based on things other than race. Have you considered that we've already seen why humans have done it recently? Because they are assholes, and communities have an easy time looking at another community and going, they're worse than me, and so what I do to that community, we see it politically right now. This idea that anything is acceptable if your community turns against another person. We know why slavery happened just a couple hundred years ago. So how about it's the same reason that people generally suck unless they are taught better ways to be, taught better ways to reason, taught things like humanistic principles, taught things like there is equality amongst all people, and that if you don't do that, the way in which you could even say we are naturally territorial, we might be naturally discriminatory because it might have been safer for us to see people who are unfamiliar as a danger to us at one time in human history. Couldn't it just be, when you say I'm struggling to figure out the reason, it sounds like you're struggling to figure out the reason that makes it work in the Bible. How about instead of trying to make the Bible's slavery work and find the reason behind it, you just try to find the reason why generally there was slavery back then? Because then the conclusion of, therefore, the society benefiting from slavery would speak positively about it, would write positively about it, doesn't seem like such a stretch as an unchanging, omnibenevolent God in all of his infinite goodness saying, homeboys, go have slaves and I'll give you some loopholes if you want to keep them.
Okay. Yeah. But, I mean, but slavery is wrong, of course. You can't own another person, whether it's part of a society or whatever. But
totally agree.
I'm saying, but why does God permit it, in the Bible, and actually have rules as to how you keep a slave and stuff,
Right.
And those are the issues that make me think. I don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater, because there's a lot of good things in the Bible, but those are some of the things that make me cringe.
Lazaro, what's good in the Bible that we can't figure out without the Bible?
Like what?
Give me something good in the Bible that you fear losing if we threw it out.
One thing in the Bible we fear losing.
You said there's a lot of good in the Bible. Is there anything good in the Bible that we know is true?
The Bible addresses family issues. About it talks about how to treat your wife. Love your wife.
Right, and treat your wife as property. So you're mentioning like there's these good passages, but yeah, we'll ignore the property stuff. Can we, without the Bible, figure out good ways for families to treat each other?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure.
So
The only
throw
thing
out
is
the
this, for
baby with
example.
the bathwater, Lazaro, because that bathwater is toxic as hell. In fact, if anything, how to treat your family, if you're starting with the Bible, the bathwater is poison, and you need something to intercept you and say, but don't treat your daughters and wives as property, and maybe don't use your daughters as bargaining chips for slavery, and maybe don't beat your children. Remember, the Bible says, spare the rod, spoil the child. We now have psychological understandings of that because of modern psychology, that this is just fear-based abuse and you actually do lasting harm. It is, period. If you're spanking your child, you're physically abusing your child. It's not a good thing for them.
Yeah. Do you guys know of any society that has ever existed on Earth that was never tainted with the touch of religion? Do you know of any society that will say we don't know anything about God, so we are totally atheistic? Do you know any society like that, or any people that have grown up like that?
Yes. The Paraha
Cool.
have no God concept. Well, they probably do now, but
how do they govern themselves?
You can
Their
go do some
morality.
research on the Paraha.
Okay. Okay. I'll do it.
But Lazaro, let's say it wasn't true. Let's say that would that make God exist or religion true if every society had been, as you said, tainted by religion? Because I'll tell you, as far as the model of the future society that I think we should live in, it has never existed before, as far as I can tell in history.
Well, the reason I say that is because if most societies have been tainted by some form of religion can always say, well, you guys are borrowing from us, right? You guys are borrowing some morality from us because
they can say whatever the fuck they
Bible
want. The fact of the matter is if you look at the progress of society and all the ways in which we have morally changed from a literal interpretation of the Bible to now the way people use it figuratively, the things that weren't metaphor before, but now are metaphor, and you ask those people, well, what mechanism changed them from metaphor to not metaphor? They're going to make up some spiritual thing. And meanwhile, it's actually because we as a society, in talking to each other and uncovering truths about each other and humanity, have become more naturally humanistic, because that's how societies advance. Slavery becoming moral to immoral was an advancement toward humanism and away from the Bible, period. Even just saying biblically it's metaphor, the slavery, that's you attempting to be more humanistic, because if you don't use something outside of the Bible to change that, you would just follow it like a fundamentalist. We are going to move on here in a second just because we have been here so long. But Lazaro, I think I'm just saying you have a ton to think about. You've identified you don't really have good reasons to believe it's true, but I think we've identified you have a fear of death and you have a sunk cost into it. And both of those things are not true at the same time as saying you care whether or not it's true or not. And you have to pick between which one is true.
Yeah.
I care whether the religion is true, or I don't want to give up my comfort around my denial or comfort around death, and I don't want to give up how much I've sunk into this. You have to pick.
There's a solution to the sunk cost fallacy, and that's this. When you start thinking about how much time, effort, money that you've put into something, and you don't want to feel that it was all wasted, just ask yourself this: how much more time, effort, and money do you want to put into it?
Yeah. I don't know.
Last thoughts,
I'm gonna have to
Lazaro.
really check some stuff, and you know, keep on checking, and who knows what's gonna happen.
Sounds good. Let us know. And if you
sir.
get stuck on any other points or struggling on anything, call in. We'll run through them with you.
And recoveringfromreligion.org.
That works too.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys.
See you, Lazaro.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Bye.
Twas a long call. I wanted a piece still once Matt was done, but maybe it wasn't necessary. Don't remember which one I had that on, so we'll switch to
There's
that.
a lot there. There's a lot there to think about. It really feels like it's like 5 calls.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Jimmy Snow, executive producer of The Line, and I only became a woodworker for the puns. That's not important. If you would like to support this channel, you can do so on our Patreon or as a channel member, and you can actually support specific shows and specific hosts in special tiers on those. Check those options out. Also, you can leave a super thanks and get a little highlighted deal. But if all else fails, you can always like, you can subscribe, and leave a comment. Now, here are some suggestions because I don't care about the algorithm. I am the algorithm. Bye.